Hello everyone, and welcome to this Fan catalog review of the Volume 2 Lionel 2020 catalog. This is the 120th anniversary of Lionel, for that matter, and Lionel has made a very impressive Volume 1 catalog earlier in the year. So since the Volume 2 catalog, I think, is supposed to be a little bit shorter than Volume 1, and it's supposed to have something to Volume 1 already covered, I'll try not to make this too long, but I have a good feeling about this since it's their 120th anniversary, and they've already made some good products, so let's see what they have. So we have the table of contents, we have the Lionel shop, as well as a letter from Lionel themselves. Now we have Lionel Magic through the decades. We have 1900 and 1910, up to 1920, 30, and so on and so forth, and even between 2000 and 2010, and now from 2010 to 2020. So that's a new addition for the timeline. There's also 4014 up here. Now we have O Scale, a Bethlehem steel. I forgot the name of it. I think it's a genset, maybe not a genset, but it's a very interesting livery for this model. So that's a pretty impressive way to start off the O Scale portion of the catalog. Next we have the Legacy Steam Locomotive, showing the reader what's usually inside one of these locomotives, going over all the details, the motors, the Bluetooth control, and the fan-driven smoke. So that's pretty cool. First we saw, oh, alright, I see what I'm looking on the bottom. Not only do we have the Pennsylvania Railroad S1 in 3 different liveries on the top, but we also have a custom livery on the bottom, the Tuscan Red. That might be one of my favorite Pennsylvania Railroad O-gauge locomotives that Lionel ever made. Wow, I can't get over how great this is looking. And again, as always, there's a description about the locomotive on the left side on the page. And I'm not going to go over the description, but if you want to read it, feel free to pause the video and read it for yourself, I would say. So we have American Railroads, the Pennsylvania Railroad as built. I think there's a few different stripes, a few less stripes somewhere. Probably just me. Then we have the calendar design. Try and see a little bit of a difference, but the calendar design is the one that has the Pennsylvania Railroad keystone on the front. Pretty nice. And then we have my personal favorites out of the 4, the Tuscan Red. So, very impressive to start off O Scale for Volume 2. Especially with that, I'm sorry, I just can't get over that Tuscan Red, but the S1 is a pretty great locomotive all in itself. Not only that, but it was also rumored to beat Mallard's speed record back in the 40s or 50s, reaching up to 156 miles per hour, as they claim. Not only that, but it's the only one of its kind built. And I might be doing an episode on this engine from Remarkable Engine soon, so that's something to keep in mind. Up next we have some Southwind passenger cars to go with the T1s. Very nice detail, and we also have a Fleet of Modernism Railway Express Postal Office baggage car over here. So it's nice to see that they got the Tuscan Red on some of these cars. That's good. Now we have some Legacy 460s. Attention to detail as always. Canadian Pacific Diesel? Sorry, just looking at the 460s, the 10-wheelers, they look very accurate, especially Reading and Northern. I think that might be the base for the rest of them, since Lionel usually tends to have a base for a certain kind of locomotive and have different liveries on that one base, but they all look pretty good, especially for the railroads in the Northeast, such as Boston and Maine, especially Canadian Pacific and New York Central and Rutland over here. A lot of attention to detail, and Texas and Pacific is the odd one of the bunch since its headlight is on the top, as you can see on the top left of the page as well, rather than in the middle like everything else here. And its number is where the headlight is usually for the rest of them. So, great attention to detail, as O Scale does always. And these are pretty good 460s. Very impressive from Lionel. Now we have the USRA 2882. We have the Norfolk and Western Weathered Norfolk and Western 2021. We have a Santa Fe 2882. We also have Baltimore and Ohio, Norfolk and Western, and 2050. This one looks a little bit different. By this one, I mean number 2020 looks a little bit different than number 2050. I think the cab is higher than the tender. It looks like it's the same model, but with a different front, and more specifically, the tender might be lower to the ground. Well, it's lower than the cab when you compare it to something like Santa Fe 1796 or Norfolk and Western 2021 or 2050. So it might be an earlier design of the model. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's still interesting to see how, even though they're using the same basis for most of these locomotives, they're still changing it up a little bit. So that's showing some improvement from Lionel, of diversity, so to speak. Now we have some more 2882s. We have Clinchfield, Rio Grande, Northern Pacific, with an interesting lighter shade for the boiler and a red top for the cab. Pennsylvania 377. I don't think the 2882s were in Brunswick Green when they ran for the Pennsy, but it looks nice on them. Kind of reminds me of Rio Grande having the same livery, either Rio Grande or Great Northern, or maybe both, having a similar livery for some of their larger locomotives. Now we have Union Pacific. I don't know if UP ever had this, but it's still interesting to see that they have that. And then we have Virginian, and it says US on the bottom for the tender, West Virginia on the top. Very interesting for this model. So up next we have the USRA Light 282 for Atlantic Coastline, Grand Trunk Western, Georgia, Lehigh Hudson River, Monon, Frisco, Southern, and Wabash. You can tell if there's a lot of attention to detail. I'll just take this time to zoom in. Notice how you have the handlebars on the side of the boiler, as well as the valve gear. And so, as O-Scale always does, so to speak, well, O-Scale isn't the name of the company, but usually the most impressive models, that being O-Scale, are shown first in the Lionel catalogs. And I can say, after viewing these catalogs for over a few years, as a matter of fact, even more than 10, that Lionel is gradually improving nearly every year with all of their attention to details, getting their designs on more railroads and lesser known engines and railroads. So this is a great O-Scale section for Lionel. Now we move on to Legacy Diesel. So this is showing the inside of a Legacy Diesel, and all the components that go into that. That's pretty nice to note as well. Up first we have the E7 AA and AB sets with Atlantic Coastline and Union Pacific City of Los Angeles. The liveries for these two are pretty interesting for Atlantic Coastline, especially Union Pacific. I don't think the UP livery is this dark of a shade of yellow in real life, but I think in the catalog it's a darker shade of all the colors for some reason than what it's supposed to look like once it's built in person, but it's still something that gives it a little bit more depth and more character, so to speak. Also notice the Chicago Northwestern logo right near 927 to show how the city of Los Angeles was split between the Union Pacific and Chicago Northwestern from Chicago to LA. So that's pretty interesting to see that Lionel was able to do a famous train such as this. Now we have some more Pennsy E7s and two different liveries for the New York Central E7s, both of which are the early paint schemes too. 4002 and 4004. This one is a lighter shade of gray, so to speak, but these two were some of the first liveries to be introduced to the New York Central when they were first testing in the, I think in the early 30s or mid to late 40s, but it's very interesting to see that Lionel was able to get some of the earlier liveries on the E7s rather than some of the more common ones, such as the Pennsy ones up here. Now we have some matching New York Central coach cars to go with the E7s. Now we have some Rock Island E7s, Southern Pacific Golden State, and the Southern Pacific Lark. This is a little bit of a tribute to the Volume 1 catalog when they had the different Golden State locomotives painted in Southern Pacific liveries. There was a Golden State livery for a Southern Pacific GS3, I think, in the Volume 1. And there was also a Lark livery for another Golden State. I think it's Golden State, I'm not sure, but Now they're doing the same thing for the diesels. The only difference being the Golden State livery for the E7 actually existed, whereas the Lark livery never existed on an E7. Although it would be very interesting to have matching diesel or steam locomotives on famous Southern Pacific trains such as these. Again, we have some matching Golden State cars to go with the E7s, or the steam locomotive from Volume 1, as well as a Golden State Vista Vision Dome, which can take a video of the track, since I think a camera is installed in the dome right up here, and it's a pretty nice accessory to have. Same thing goes for the Lark. We also have a Vista Vision Dome. Now we have the Legacy Genset switchers in Bethlehem Steel, BNSF, and CSX, as well as Norfolk Southern Pennsylvania, Union Pacific, and Union Pacific Graffiti. Alright, I can say for a fact that the Pennsylvania Railroad never rostered a genset, but the red top does go very well with the Brunswick green livery for the Pensies, so I think I remember Lionel making Pennsylvania or Santa Fe maintenance of way equipment around 10-ish years ago, so this isn't the first time they had a fallen flag railroad roster maintenance equipment or modern locomotives, so to speak, but it's still interesting to see that they were able to pull this off with a genset. Then we have the commonly seen gensets for Union Pacific and BNSF, both of which are now stored for the most part, so it's pretty nice to see that they got these down. Up next we have some GP7s. Cotton Belt 304. I think the Cotton Belt did have a GP7 in this livery, and I think it was the only one to be rostered in any kind of Cotton Belt or Southern Pacific livery. It's probably my favorite out of the ones listed here. But anyways, other than Cotton Belt, we have Santa Fe, Maine Central, Northern Pacific, Seaboard, and Texas and Pacific. Very interesting liveries on these locomotives. Again, great attention to detail for the style of the GP7, as well as all the components, the doors of the engines, and good overall. Although I'm not sure if the Northern Pacific GP7s had this yellow portion near the door. I'll have to double check, but I'm not sure. Other than that, pretty good. Up next we have the Shark Nose units for the J... Oh, my bad. For the J, Santa Fe, and a Baldwin Demonstrator. Three very interesting liveries for the Shark Nose. And this one, the top one, is interesting because I remember learning about the J having a Shark Nose recently. And it's not really well known that the J ever rostered these Shark Noses, so to speak, or the Santa Fe. And I must say the white livery for Santa Fe does look very good on the Shark Noses. Right. So up next we have the Monongahela, New York Central, Tuscan Red, and Brunswick Green liveries for the Pennsy Shark Noses, as well as the U.S. Army Shark Nose, numbered 1775 and 1776. For some reason 76 is trailing instead of leading, but oh well. Pretty nice to see that Lionel was able to get a U.S. Army Shark Nose out of all these. And I must say the front of it does look very fitting for the Shark Nose. Anyways, now, okay, no, I'm sorry. That is an awesome train set, but no. Yes, the Explorer did exist. It ran between Cleveland and Cincinnati in the late 50s, but they technically used a different locomotive. I think it was from Baldwin, but it definitely wasn't a Shark Nose. And they didn't use these passenger cars either, but you tried. I don't know if anyone else has an Explorer train set, but it's close, but it's not accurate. Kudos to you for coming up with the idea, but try and make the actual model the next time you make this set, sometime in the future. It's my piece of advice. I mean, like, you got the livery correct, but it just needs to be the correct coach cars in the diesel, but pretty good. Very interesting to see that you decided to do this on the Shark Nose. Now we have some Legacy Series train sets. Pittsburgh and Lake Erie freight set, as well as a Southern freight set with one of the original liveries for the Star GP7. So that's pretty good. Next we have some B60 passenger cars and some Pullman sleepers. Interesting to see how the Penn Central is labeled over the Tuscan red. Something interesting to note. Now we have some Wi-Fi theater cars. Pretty much inspection cars that they have on the back of the train, which is pretty much the same purpose as the Vista Vision Dome, but this time it's from the back. Very innovative from Lionel. Next we have some covered gondolas, some roof hatch boxcars, 100-ton hoppers, PS2 hoppers, not PlayStation 2, just PS2. Some bay window cabooses, Southern Pacific Rail Police. I'm not sure if they had a caboose for that, but it's pretty interesting to see. Standard dough flat cars with stakes, RBLs, NE5s. Now we have O-Gauge. I would call these starter sets, so to speak, since there's not as much specific attention to detail with O-Gauge, since they're not scale models, but they're still ready for fun, as someone once described them. And here's a list going off the different features of Line Chief Plus, and Line Chief Plus 2.0. Now we have some cab forwards, and apparently now we have a Line Chief Daylight cab forward. I think Lionel released this Daylight cab forward in Legacy Series, I think a few years ago, but now we have it in O-Gauge. So that's pretty interesting to see. And we have some brighter colors for the GP7s, including Atlantic Coastline, MKT, B&O, and Rock Island Rockets. Now we have a Chesapeake and Ohio Lion Chief set with some pretty standard freight cars. Standard 284 Berkshire, I think, model. Corrects me if I'm wrong, but it's a nice model that we have leading. It's the same basis that they have for the Polar Express, the same one that they've been using for nearly 15 years, but at least it's proving itself as a loyal basis for steam locomotives. Next we have assorted boxcars for Kate Shelley, as well as Canadian Pacific, having an anniversary. 140th anniversary, might I add. Angela Dorado Thomas. Then we have personalized boxcars for events, such as birthdays, holidays, first responders. Expand Your World. Looks like we're going into the accessories, so to speak. We have a few garages. American Flyer is in here. You have MKT, we have SMS Rail Lines. Very nice to see that that's in S-Gauge. As well as an interesting livery for the Lehigh Valley on a Baldwin, Baltimore and Ohio. Now we have a U.S. Air Force train set, as well as a Batman car over here. Now we have depressed center flat cars, Woodside reefers. This one says for ages 21 and older. For the Brewing Co. and the Beer of Quality since 1876. Gondolas, Lionel moment that lasts a lifetime. 50th anniversary. Interesting. We have a nice Union Pacific set over here. We have an interesting red roof for 2020. Sixth annual Lionel Train Day, December 5th. Another checklist, this time Legacy. And that is the 2020 Volume 2 catalog. Hopefully this is a little bit shorter than some of the previous episodes I have uploaded. And overall, a great review for Lionel. They didn't really include O-Gauge or the starter sets as much, since that was already covered in the Volume 1 catalogs. But I would say the addition of some of these Legacy locomotives made the catalog very interesting. Especially that Tuscan Red S1. That's up there with the Golden State Daylight. in terms of 2020. But just goes to show how Lionel has made another great catalog for the year of 2020. And hopefully they'll continue to make great models such as this in the future. Thank you again for watching, and have a good day.